Welcome to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show on today, June 13th, 2024. This is our 200th episode. My name is Andy Z. I'm a host of the Revolution Nothing Less show.
And I'm Annie Day, and very glad to be with you here today, Andy, and with all of you.
Yeah, it's good to celebrate the 200th show with you, Annie. This is a show about the world. It's a show for a radically new world. And those of us living here in this country can make the greatest contribution to bringing about that new world by overthrowing this system that we live under. Capitalism, imperialism, through an actual revolution, a revolution that is possible. You'll learn more about that today. A revolution to bring about a radically new way to live, an emancipating way to live, based on the Constitution for a new socialist republic in North America. That Constitution was written by the revolutionary leader, Bob Avakian.
And we base ourselves on Avakian's leadership, scientific understanding, and vision of the world that Andy was just talking about. On today's show, we're featuring a teach-in that the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity organized together with others in South Central Los Angeles stopped the U.S.-Israeli genocide of the Palestinian people. And we're going to talk about how we're getting organized for revolution this summer. You're going to hear directly from Bob Avakian, speaking to the strategy to really make revolution, learn how we're seizing on the time we're in, where revolution is more possible, and how you can be part of this.
It's a great thing that revolution is in the air right now, but then questions come up. What is the character and the goal of the revolution? How can it be made? Why do we need a scientific approach to lead the revolution? What is the morality we need to have so that we bring about a world that's really fit for humanity with a whole different culture, a whole different way that people relate to each other? Look, these are urgent questions. They need to be torn open. They need to be debated. They need to be wrestled with. And no one has done more work on this and forged a more path-breaking and truly scientific approach to these questions than Bob Avakian. So later in today's show, we're going to play an excerpt from Bob Avakian speaking to the strategy for a revolution, how we could really make that revolution. So stay tuned for that. But after the show's over, get some friends to watch it. And together, discuss it, talk about that strategy, and talk about what really could be possible. And as you're watching the show now, leave your comments below.
So with that, let's dive into the teach-in that was hosted by the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity in Los Angeles. Over now 8 months of this genocidal war on the Palestinian people, over 37,000 people have been killed, including more than 15,000 children. People are starving, and the massacres are too many to count. Last weekend's teach-in brought together people from different perspectives to get into this. Why is this happening? What's happening? And what we need to do now. The speakers included myself, Noura, a longtime activist for Palestinian Liberation, Carmen, who is the vice president of the Black Student Union at Camino College, and Noche Diaz, national spokesperson for the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity. And this was emceed by Michelle, a leader with the Revcom Corps in Los Angeles. Let's watch.
My name is Michelle. I'm a leader of the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity, and I want to welcome everybody to this teach-in to stop the genocidal slaughter of the Palestinian people now. I just want to start off by saying that everybody here is in the right place, okay? Look, just to give people a little bit of a background, we've been working on this teach-in because there's still a big gap where a lot of people don't know what's happening to the Palestinian people. The slaughter of more than 36,000 people. People have seen some images on social media. Kids as young as 8 years old have told me that they've seen on TikTok the images of parents carrying their lifeless babies and still don't know that the U.S. government has a hand in fully backing and supporting Israel in this slaughter. So this is why we are here today. And this is why it matters, even as we're doing this outdoors, a teach-in in exile, because for people that have been organizing and part of this working on this teach-in know that we've been working for about a month and trying to get a room in this park to be able to have this teaching, and our permit was not approved. And so this is part of a pattern nationally from very prominent voices, authors, artists, film festivals that have had their events canceled. And just like us today, they did not back down. And this is why it matters that we pull together. Yes, we minimize and actually like try to simplify our plan to get out here under the tree in the grass to talk about what's happening, because we should not, and nobody should stop talking about what's happening in Palestine. In fact, there needs to be more people, and there needs to be more events just like these all across society amongst people that right now don't know what's happening in Palestine, to be asking the biggest questions, to learn the basics about what is happening in Palestine and what we need to do now to come together to put an end to it. And this is why it matters that we are all here today. So give yourself a round of applause for being here today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and thank you to the Revcom Corps leadership and Michelle for allowing us to create the space to explore and engage on this topic, which is crucially important to us as U.S. citizens and as social justice-minded human beings. The thousands of innocent civilians that have been killed in the last now 6 months mark the darkest chapter in Palestinian history. But this chapter cannot be understood without the knowledge of the years that preceded it, particularly since 1948. I want to take a few moments of silence to honor those who have been massacred and those who are living in terror, not knowing if they will be alive tomorrow. A little about my background. I'm a Palestinian American who was born and raised in the Bay Area. I've been involved in Palestine activism my entire life, and I am exhilarated by the recent infusion of energy into the movement for Palestinian freedom and dignity. At the same time, I feel immense grief for the cost of these gains. The cost of unimaginable human suffering and thousands of Palestinians' lives lost, half of which are children. Children. I am also Palestinian Christian. Palestinian Christian communities have been indigenous to Palestine since the birth of Christianity. I say this to make an important point. This conflict is often painted as religious in nature. It is not. The heart of this conflict is rooted in the ethnic cleansing of the indigenous population of Palestine by a settler colonial ideology called Zionism. So I'd like to clarify a few misconceptions that people often have around the conflict. This is not a religious war between Muslims and Jews that goes back centuries. Number 2, Zionism is a political ideology based on ethno-nationalism. 3, being critical of Zionism or the State of Israel is not equivalent to anti-Semitism. In fact, in the words of U.S. President Joe Biden, or Genocide Joe, you need not be a Jew to be a Zionist. Many right-wing politicians in the U.S. government are actually self-proclaimed Christian Zionists, and many Jews identify as anti-Zionists. This may help you understand why my father, who was born in West Jerusalem before the State of Israel was established in 1948, can never live there again because only Jews are allowed to live there. Or why, when he tried to visit his homeland a few years ago upon arrival, he was denied entry, detained in a cell for 36 hours, and sent back home to the U.S. Or even why any Jewish person in the world, no matter where they're from, can claim Israeli citizenship, but because I am of Palestinian descent, face a myriad of challenges to simply visit my family in the occupied territories. Despite Israel's claim to be a democracy, millions of Palestinians who have lived under Israeli military occupation for decades are denied the basic civil and human rights enjoyed by their Jewish counterparts. The same rights that the U.S. claims to promote worldwide. The fact is that the U.S. provides $3.8 billion a year in military aid to a nation that has been likened to the apartheid state of South Africa by many human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the United Nations. I hope I can speak for all of us and say that we are tired of the cycles of violence that this situation continues to produce. I believe wholeheartedly that Jewish safety and Palestinian freedom go hand in hand. Being pro-Palestine and against anti-Semitism go hand in hand because all systems of oppression reinforce one another and none can be fought in isolation. I reject the cynical view that one people's security is dependent on the oppression of another. We have the unique opportunity to stop the war machine that is destroying families, robbing human beings of their dreams and futures, and that is planting the seeds for future conflict.
I want to bring up our next speaker, Carmen, who is the vice president of the Black Student Union at El Camino College. And so it really is an honor and really happy to be here with Carmen, who's been working on putting this teaching together too. So once again, give a hand to Carmen.
Hi, thank you, Michelle. Yes, my name is Carmen Nichols, and I am the I hope it's working, vice president of the Black Student Union at El Camino College. And similar to this teaching, we did kind of receive some passive-aggressive backlash in terms of the teaching itself. It was originally supposed to happen a couple weeks prior to when, it actually happened, but we kept, asking for this one room, asking for us to be permitted to have the teaching in this room. They just never answered. They wouldn't tell us yes, they wouldn't tell us no, it would just time out. So eventually we're like, okay, we're just gonna do it outside. And even then, we still have campus security off in the background watching us. Staff wasn't allowed to come out, but it was a really good experience. And the fact that so many people wanted to educate themselves and wanted to learn on this topic, it made me happy as well as my peers happy, because we really need to educate ourselves on what is happening in America. I really think it's easy to live in a bubble. Me, myself, from high school to college, I was so self-absorbed. I was like, I'm in high school, I'm a kid, I don't have time to deal with this. Whatever happens outside, that's not me. I'm in my little bubble. I would actually feel irritated when people would try to get me out of my bubble, because it's like, I'm already having a chaotic time here, and now you're telling me overseas people are dying. It's too much for me to handle. I just can't deal with it. But it's honestly important for you to deal with it, and for you to look at it, and for you to have these conversations. For a lot of people, that bubble was popped last semester, college terms. Last year in October, that bubble was popped, due to TikTok and Instagram. It was just in your face. There was no escaping it. You were seeing dead children. You were seeing bodies. You were seeing people in shrouds, not in shrouds, body parts. And it was very hard to escape it. And a lot of people just didn't know what to do. Some people, took to reposting and sharing like I did. But when we all got back to, real life, we went back to work, we went back to school, and there was a radio silence. There was nothing. Nobody was talking about it, especially on my campus. It was very stifling. The atmosphere felt very suffocating, and it wasn't until this one professor, Professor Ali, put posters all up on his office that were pro-Palestinian, and the genocide. And I felt this pressure relief just leave my shoulders, and a breath of fresh air just come into my chest, because somebody's here. Somebody's like, I'm not crazy. It actually happened. People are actually talking about it. And I think it's important that we all feel comfortable talking and having these conversations, because without it, we're never going to get to the bottom of anything. Those who are ignorant of the situation aren't going to know any better if we don't have these conversations.
I want to bring up our next speaker, Annie Day, who is speaking for the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity and is also the director of the Avakian Institute.
It's very good to be here with you guys. And I want to thank Noura and Carmen. Very important statements, and appreciated both the discussion here but also the discussion we had beforehand. And I do think the asking the deeper questions in the way that you both argued for but also applied to yourself at a turning point really matters. Okay, so I'm going to speak to two questions. And we don't have time to get into everything here today. And one of the things I think we have to leave time for and hanging out afterwards, we are talking correctly about what a horror it is to live under this system for people here and all over the world, and very especially the horror being brought down on the Palestinian people right now by this system. But we also have to talk about the kind of world that we could bring into being through an actual revolution. That's not going to be in my comments today, but I do want to say that that's an urgent question, because we don't have to live this way. We don't have to keep bearing our own. So that's going to take us, and we should talk about that afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to speak to two questions, some of which Noura actually touched on. One, why being against the state of Israel is not the same as being against Jewish people. And two, why is this vicious genocidal slaughter of the Palestinian people being fully backed by Biden and practically the whole U.S. government? But before I get into this, I want to share some of my personal background. So for a big part of my family, being Jewish is who they are. Not in the religious sense, but in the culture, in the traditions, in the humor, and in the food, and in the guilt. But so my family fled Russia in the late 1800s and early 1900s, escaping the violent pogroms against Jews. And pogroms were basically riots by European peasants who'd go into villages and towns, burn down homes, loot stores, and kill and terrorize Jewish people. And afterwards, I encourage people to look up what's happening in the West Bank right now, and you'll see what I mean by pogroms, except this time it's Jews doing it to Palestinians. So what happened during the Holocaust in World War II to the Jews in Europe, with over 6 million Jewish people killed by the Nazis, this put a huge stamp on every Jewish person around the world. Having relatives who were killed, but also being subjected to the hatred and the oppression, the dehumanization of watching your people slaughtered in such a mass way. And to them, being Jewish meant you were an underdog, and that you had a responsibility to stand with the underdog, to fight injustice. And you'll learn a lot of Jews took part in and supported the civil rights movement because of that. But here's an important thing. There were two responses among the Jews to the Holocaust. Some people said, never again can we let this happen to anybody ever, anywhere in the world. But other Jewish people said, never again to my people. And whatever we have to do to other people to ensure that we are never persecuted in that way again is justified. This is why the revolutionary leader, Avakian, is an architect of the new communism. This is why he has said that after the Holocaust, the worst thing to happen to the Jewish people is the state of Israel. And it captures the big divide in my family today, where too few people consistently apply what it really means to say never again. Never again are you going to allow to do what was done to you to be used in the service of viciously oppressing whole other peoples. And too many of them have allowed them in supporting Israel and becoming Zionists to allow that to allow that anger and that outrage at having been oppressed, to allow that to be used to serve the oppression of others. To thinking that the key to never being dominated or oppressed is to become the new oppressor. Standing against that is not the same thing as being against Jewish people. One is actually in line with the correct lessons of the oppression against Jews for centuries, including the Holocaust. But the other is a profound betrayal of that. Listen, to say that because we were fucked over, now it's our turn to fuck over other people, this is a really poisonous way of thinking and acting. And it's what we hear way too often from people. out here today, not just among Zionists, but among black people who are hating on immigrants or men who are hating on women. No, we have to end all oppression for everyone, everywhere. That is why the Revcom Corps is the Revcom Corps for the emancipation of all humanity. Look, so one of the ways that people try to attack and discredit those standing up for Palestinian people and speaking out against the state of Israel is they say that anti-Semitism is the same as anti-Zionism. But this is wrong. But let me speak to a couple definitions here. Being anti-Semitic, it means hating on and being against all Jewish people just for being Jews. But Zionism is very different. Zionism is a racist, Jewish supremacist political movement and ideology. It believes that Jewish people should have a state that's dominated and run for Jewish people. And it's the basis on which the state of Israel was founded. With the theft of land from the Palestinians, Palestinians denied rights, treated like second-class citizens, with all the ongoing oppression and murder, now reaching the genocidal proportions that we see today. Genocide Joe Biden, a bunch of the Democrats and the fascists in government right now, they're trying to make a law that basically would ban any criticism of Israel by saying it's the same as anti-Semitism. So this is very dangerous, and we need to understand the difference. We shouldn't allow anti-Semitism. We shouldn't allow attacks against Jews. That's messed up. But the idea that you're going to mush together criticism of the state of Israel with being against Jewish people, that's a lie. So it matters that we understand the difference. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. We even have stickers you can wear that say that. You should promote that and tell people what the differences are and why that matters. So now I want to speak to the second big question. Why is this happening? Why, after 8 months of genocide, is the U.S. still sending bombs and guns and money and intelligence? Why is Biden continuing to justify what's happening after 8 months of massacres, of starvation, of women and men in homes blown to bits before the eyes of the whole world? Why? This is a very important question, and you have to look beneath the surface to be able to see the answer. Bob Avakian answers this really crisply in his social media, and I'm gonna quote him on that. And it's also, I want to encourage people to get, this is a compilation that our institute, the Bob Avakian Institute, put together. It's called Israel and Palestine, the Middle East and U.S. Imperialism, the Revolution That Humanity Needs. And this is a distillation of a lot of work to help us understand why. Why is the U.S. backing Israel? But he also pulls the lens back on what's the situation in the whole Middle East? What's it going to take for humanity here to get, and all around the world, to get free? Okay, so in this one on social media, which everyone should follow, Bob Avakian Official on all social media platforms. Okay, he answers why. He says, this is not because of the power of the Jewish lobby. People say, oh, AIPAC is the problem. AIPAC is an Israeli pro-Israel lobby. Okay, fine. They're no good, but they're not the problem. This is not the power of the Jewish lobby, or it's not because of some ignorant, ridiculous, or outrageous notion that Jews are controlling everything. This is happening because Israel plays a special role as a heavily armed bastion of support for U.S. imperialism in a strategically important part of the world, the Middle East. And Israel has been a key force in the commission of atrocities, which have helped to maintain the oppressive rule of U.S. imperialism in many parts of the world. Okay, so let's break this down. What did I just say? What does it mean? What does it mean to say the Middle East is a strategically important part of the world? After today's teaching, I want people to Google a map of the world and look at where the Middle East is in relationship to the whole rest of the world. And you'll see that it's a crossroads between Europe, Africa, and Asia. It's one of the world's major shipping and trade routes, right? If you want to ship oil from here to there, it goes through those channels. So that's one. But even more, the Middle East is strategic because the most important single resource in the modern capitalist economy, which is also poisoning the earth, is concentrated there. What am I talking about? Oil. Oil is foundational to the whole global capitalist economy. the whole global imperialist economy. Now, this is not mainly because the U.S. needs to control oil for its direct consumption. If you think of it like a gangster, if you don't control the product, then your gangster rival will control the product. So the U.S. is in a sharp battle with their imperialist gangster rivals of Russia and China. And this is a contention that actually could lead to nuclear war and the annihilation of humanity. They're that serious about one-upping each other. They're threatening to risk our whole planet. So America has like 30 military bases in the Middle East. It's got 54,000 troops in the Middle East, and they back up other oppressive countries in the region. But none of that is as essential as the U.S.'s, this is what they call our special relationship with Israel. Israel has a massive military machine, including nuclear weapons. And for decades, the U.S. has given most military aid to Israel. And Israel has served the U.S. as a reliable and as a militarily powerful ally against any other power aspiring for their come-up, and to repress the movements within the countries of the Middle East that run counter to U.S. domination. So I want to read again. So even though the criminal nature of this system is being exposed, with every bomb dropped in Gaza, people are seeing the nature of this system. Even with that, the U.S. imperialists faced intense and extreme necessity that they have to continue to back Israel in its genocide. Because if the U.S. does not control the Middle East, they face the danger that their gangster rivals will. So I want to read again how Bob Avakian speaks to this, and then I want to read his conclusion. Again, he says, why is Biden and basically the entire government and ruling class of the U.S. supporting Israel in carrying out this genocide against the Palestinian people before the whole world? This is not because of the power of the Jewish lobby or because of some ignorant, ridiculous, and outrageous notion that Jews are controlling everything. It is because Israel plays a special role as the heavily armed bastion of support for U.S. imperialism in a strategically important part of the world, the Middle East. And Israel has been a key force in the commission of atrocities which have helped to maintain the oppressive rule of U.S. imperialism in many other parts of the world. And I didn't have time to explain what that part means, but if you go to our website, revcom.us, you can see a map where Israel has helped train death squads and militaries all over the world throughout the history of like the last 40 years at the behest of the U.S. So there's more to dig into in terms of all that. But here's the point. It is the system of capitalism, imperialism that Biden serves, the system that he has to serve, the system that anybody and everybody has to serve if they want to hold office, especially high office, like president within this system. That is why Biden is doing what he's doing, what all these politicians are doing, above and beyond their more narrow personal interests. It is the system of capitalism, imperialism that embodies and enforces white supremacy, patriarchal male supremacy, and other brutal oppression. This system resting on ruthless, life-stealing exploitation of masses of people in this country and literally billions of people worldwide, including more than 150 million children, all enforced with massive violence and destruction of people, the environment, posing a very real threat to the future and the existence of humanity. This system that needs to be overthrown at the soonest possible time through an actual revolution. And I'll just say this, so that's Bob Avakian, but if you don't understand why the system is the problem, then you won't know how to stop it. You won't know how to stop this genocide. You won't know how to stop what this system is doing to destroy the environment, and on and on. And there is a way to stop it. And I invite people to talk with us afterwards, to get organized, to dig into. There is a strategy to make this revolution. So let's keep talking. But I want to end with this. Bob Avakian has said, we, the people of the world, can no longer afford to allow these imperialists to continue to dominate the world and determine the destiny of humanity. And it is a scientific fact that humanity does not have to live this way. So never again for anyone.
I'm going to bring up our next speaker, Noche Diaz, who is the national spokesperson for the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity.
Everyone here, if the charred corpses of children, the blood running in the streets of Rafah, the ash and the rubble being made of Gaza calls out to you, then I am calling on you. If you look at the human beings in the tens of millions around the world, from Gaza to the Congo to Mexico, who have to flee their homelands because of war, conflict, and environmental destruction caused by this system, and you hear their cries, I am calling on you. If you hear the fury of women who will not be chained and forced to be mothers and enslaved to a patriarchal order, then I am calling on you. Revolution Summer 2024. Sisters, brothers, and others, we have a chance to take charge of the fate of humanity. We have a chance to write an important chapter in history. The people who run it right now are barreling us towards potential annihilation with environmental destruction, potential conflicts leading to world war. But we have a chance to change all of that. When we talk about a revolution in the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity, we're not throwing that word around. We follow Bob Avakian, who's dead serious about an actual revolution to overthrow this system. That means millions of people being led to defeat the armed violence that is used to force this way of life on people. A revolution to dismantle the institutions that rule over us, including the governing U.S. Constitution, and to establish and replace this system with a constitution for a new socialist republic in North America that would back people up to emancipate humanity. That's an actual revolution. And the chance to do that in a powerful country like this doesn't come along all the time. And I'm not going to get fully into it right now, but you can go to Bob Avakian Official on social media, where he's constantly getting into why the time we live in now is one that does not come along but once in a lifetime. The chance to actually, right here in the belly of the beast, get this monstrous empire off the backs of the people of the world and the people here. This summer, Revolution Summer 2024, we are calling on you to be part of working with the Revcom Corps around the country. We need to be putting before everybody, we do not have to choose between Genocide Joe Democratic Party or fascist Trump MAGA Republicans. No fascist Trump, no Genocide Joe. The whole damn system has got to go. And as millions of people are, again, all eyes on the DNC because of they're trying to make America something it's not, or what they want it to be. Millions of people need to see the message of growing numbers of people who are saying we're not lining up and waiting for an election after the election to talk about ending this genocide. We are working to do that now, and we are working to bring everybody into the fight for a revolution to bring this whole system down at a time when it's coming apart. When you have the fascist Make America Great Republicans talking about unleashing waves of violence if they don't win the election in 2024. And they're also talking about unleashing waves of violent repression if they do win the election against all the groups of people here who they hate. Black people, uppity women, LGBT people, immigrants from what they call shithole countries. This is the future they're trying to drag us towards. This is the future we cannot allow. The future we have a chance to make is one in which we use this time to build up the thousands who could lead millions to actually bring this system down. This summer, Revolution Summer 2024, we're going to be training corps of leaders and Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity around the country through Revolution School. That's happening nationwide, where people are going to be getting into the dispatches from Bob Avakian that he's been releasing regularly that break down for people in a popular way why this revolution is necessary, why this system can't be reformed, why America was never great, and how this revolution could actually be won. Yes, right here in the belly of the beast, to wipe this system off the face of the earth and to replace it with something that would be truly emancipatory for humanity. And we want to involve you right away because, look, July 4th is coming up. This is a holiday they use to really do a number on people with the brainwash that America is somehow a force for good in the world, to celebrate this country as the shining light of freedom and democracy, leader of the free world, when it's actually a model of truly depraved racist genocide for people all over the world. And we want you to be part of working in the next weeks so that July 4th and that whole week, everyone in LA is seeing in public spaces, prominent public spaces, we haven't figured out where yet, major installations that are bringing together 3 examples of this. One, imagine if there were a sea of those kinds of baby dolls charred or decapitated to represent the children in Gaza who are being slaughtered with U.S. guns and bombs and tanks. And what if that was being connected with the generations of black people and Latinos who are shot down and murdered by the police in this country? And then that was connected with the immigrants who are forced to flee their homelands and then are degraded, dehumanized, put in camps in this country and called criminals, drug dealers, rapists, in the kind of language that's been used to justify genocide throughout history. What if that were all put together for people to see what this country is really all about, and to break people's allegiance from this country and bring it towards the revolution? We in the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation are calling out to you. And more than that, the opportunity, the historical chance to actually make an advance, to make a revolution in this country. Yes, this country that has its boot on people all over the world. That moment in history is calling out to us to this summer become who we need to be. We have a chance to become part of the generation that stopped a genocide as it was being carried out on our watch and contributed a great gift to humanity by doing everything we can to build up the forces that could bring this system down right here in the belly of the beast and bring about an actually emancipating future.
This teaching was a new thing, bringing the reality of the genocide that Israel is carrying out with the full support of the U.S. into South Central Los Angeles, where most people don't really know what is really going down in Palestine. They've seen the images of the children, and they feel for the people, but they don't know what we brought in this teaching. And it felt really right and important to have people from the neighborhood to be engaging the truth of this together with students, professors, and activists. This mixing and meshing, learning from each other, and doing so as part of understanding the cause of the genocide and the capitalist imperialist system, as Annie brought out in her talk. This is really important. And Noche powerfully spoke to the call for Revolution Summer 2024, a summer of building up the organized forces for a way out of all the horrors that this system is bringing down on people here and around the world. And he brought out that with the ruling class of this country so deeply divided between the MAGA fascist Trump Republicans and genocide Joe Biden, the war criminal Democrat, there is a rare moment in history where revolution could be possible, but that would only be so if we prepare for it now. Noche brought out that Revolution Summer 2024 is going to be an active school of revolution, of struggle, and guiding this will be the leadership that Bob Avakian is providing through his social media dispatches every week. What Revolution Summer is about is urgent. This is not something to do in summer 2025. Now is the time when things are coming to a head in this country. This is the moment we must seize. In Bob Avakian's social media message number 11, he says this:
The presidential election this year, 2024, will be a sharp focus of the fight between these ruling class parties, Democrats and Republicans. a fight that is very likely to break all out of the bounds of the normal way they exercise power over the people and keep their whole system going. This could lead to armed clashes between the opposing sections of the ruling class, which could even develop into large-scale military confrontation, a new kind of civil war. In any case, this kind of profound crisis within the ruling system is bound to affect every part of society and every major institution of this system, including its armed forces, with the real potential for major splits in those institutions. The fascists in this country as a whole are not as great in numbers as those who are opposed to the fascists. But these fascists are driven by an irrational fanaticism, fueled by the notion that this country will not be worth living in if they do not take extreme measures to reverse the way things are going. They also have a lot of initiative because a major section of the ruling class is made up of fascists who dominate very important institutions, including the Supreme Court. And they are also willing to act outside of the normal procedures of this system and mobilize violent fanatics to achieve their goals. At the same time, among the majority of people who are opposed to this fascism, too many are still going along with the way things have always been, clinging to the hope that somehow things will work out as they always have, while many are also weighed down by the belief that nothing can be done to change the very negative direction of things. The Democratic Party is deathly afraid of mobilizing masses of people in the way that would be necessary to decisively defeat the fascists, because the Democrats fear that this could lead to things getting all out of control, threatening their whole system. This is where the forces for revolution come in, bringing out sharply the reality of what is happening and why, and bringing alive the only positive solution to all this, acting urgently and decisively to change the whole alignment, the whole polarization in society, rapidly repolarizing things in a way that is increasingly favorable for revolution, winning masses of people from every part of society to break with this whole system and come over to the side of the revolution. The forces for revolution must come to the fore in the fight against the fascists, and do so not with the aim of preserving or restoring the democratic form of this murderously oppressive system of capitalism imperialism, but with the strategic goal of bringing down this whole system and bringing something much better into being.
That was Bob Avakian in his social media dispatch number 11. Look, the struggle to stop the genocide of the Palestinian people will be a big part of Revolution Summer 2024. It's going to sharpen up the question for masses of people of which side are you on, for humanity or for this system?
That's right. There is no neutral in the face of a genocide. And in that spirit, it really matters that the protests against this genocide have continued on the campuses and throughout society. Just last weekend, tens of thousands of people gathered in Washington, D.C., and 1,000 in L.A. to demand an end to the U.S.-Israeli genocide and an end to Biden's continued funding for this genocide.
My name is Noura. I'm with the Revcom Corps in Los Angeles, and we're here today because this is a genocide. Biden said, oh, there's a red line that we do not cross them off, but they have crossed it over and over and over again this week, massacring hundreds of people. And now that's adding to the already thousands of people. So We have to go out and unite all who can be united to stop this genocide. We also have to open up the big questions. Okay, where is this coming from? Why is this happening? What is the genocide of the Palestinians and people suffering all across the world have to do with people suffering here? It has everything to do with people suffering here because it's rooted in a system of capitalism and imperialism. And that's a system that needs to be overthrown. And we're calling on people, we're telling people, get with the Revcom Corps. We're going to have a revolution summit, a summer of resistance and revolution. We're going to go out, we're going to bring this fight for Gaza, like everywhere. We're going to study the leadership of Avakian. People need to get into the dispatches that he's gotten into. Follow at Avakian official. He's getting into, okay, why is Biden backing the genocide? What is the difference between decolonization and revolution? Or why is anti-Zionism not anti-Semitism? These questions need to be opened up right now as a historic moment. When revolution, we are living in a rare time when revolution becomes more possible.
In D.C., they surrounded the entire perimeter of the White House, more than a mile, with a red paper banner carrying the names of the people killed in Gaza. And there was also a defiant creative protest at UCLA on Monday, where students set up an encampment where they attempted to read the names of the tens of thousands of people killed. And when one encampment was closed, they picked everything up and they set up another encampment again and again throughout the night. But instead of being given the space for this, the university sent in vicious police to shut this down, and the students did not back down. The Revcom Corps was part of this, uniting with and helping to defend the protest from this violent assault. Again, this is important, and it needs to be taken much, much further, demanding an end to the genocidal slaughter of the Palestinian people backed by the U.S. I was talking with someone at an event the other night, and we were talking about the need and the potential for a real revolution. And in response, they said, man, I would love it if that were possible, but I've never heard a real plan for that. This is why people have to know about and seriously dig into and follow Bob Avakian. On the spot, I showed them the playlist that includes the first 11 of BA's social media messages on YouTube. Real revolution in this time. What the powers that be don't want you to know. This is a short course in understanding why we need a revolution for real and how that revolution is possible in this time. It's what people need to have an immediate and a serious engagement with this debate really impacting all of society so that people aren't like that woman who are interested and open but have never heard this serious plan.
Right. I also want to strongly urge you to really be following Bob Avakian on social media. He's providing hot on the heels and real-time revolutionary leadership. Look, right now we're in a very fast-paced and complex situation, and it's going to get faster and more complex as we approach the election. And Bob Avakian's giving real leadership to this in real time. How we can understand what's happening, how to act on it, how to make the revolution we need. And he's going up against all the bullshit ways that this system has people thinking and acting. You need to be really digging into these social media posts, spreading them to other people, to your friends, to people you don't know, everywhere you can. Getting together and talking about them with people and learn all you can from the agitation and the analysis that Bob Avakian provides.
Yeah, to give a sense, here are just a few of the titles. His social media post, Revolution number 50, is titled Trump's Felony Convictions, His Ridiculous Pose as a Victim in This Thoroughly Rotten System. Revolution number 48 is Liberalism, Progressivism, Opposition to Injustice, and Zionism. You can't have it all. You can't hold on to Zionism and be consistent in opposing injustice and atrocity. Revolution number 45, more on the crucial question of why this is a rare time when revolution is not only urgently necessary, but more possible. Yes, right in this powerful imperialist country. Revolution number 43, what should be centered is scientifically based truth, and many, many more. If you sign up on his Substack, you can get an email newsletter every time there's a new post that sends you the text and the video. So now, to get more into the strategy for this revolution, we want to play a segment from the interviews that BA did on this, the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. Let's watch.
you've developed as a key part of the strategy through which we could make a revolution is encapsulated in a slogan, fight the power and transform the thinking, and transform the people for revolution. Fight the power and transform the people for revolution. And you said that the second part of this, while both are important, everything has to be for revolution, it's important. You said this tonight, that people stand up and they fight against the system and their oppression, but that the pivotal thing here is transforming the thinking of people. And people are thinking a lot of bullshit. You've brought that out very viscerally. But I want you to continue to go on this, because if we don't do this, you've made the point that if you don't transform the thinking of people and they don't get into the revolution, the world's going to stay the oppressive shithole that it is. I wanted to ask you, and just listening to those stories, how did this come to you? This has been we have to be honest, this has been a contentious issue within the movement for an actual revolution. People like the first part, but the second part, maybe not so much, because you're struggling with the very people you need to get into the revolutions.
Well, I think the point's been made, and it's important to, to understand this deeply, that, Mao said, wherever there is oppression, there will be resistance. And that's not just because Mao said it, but it's actually capturing an important part of reality. People do rise up all the time. Again, they may be, their anger may be suppressed, their outrage may be contained for a while, but eventually resistance does break forth all the time. And we see this all around us. But the question is, where is it going to go? And then it's the even more fundamental question is, what are the things that they're rebelling against? Considering that in its essential character and main aspect, its basic role, it's positive. What are the things that they're rebelling against rooted in? Because again, if you want to uproot something, you have to know what is rooted in. Mm-hmm. So people rebel, but on their own. Yes, look, this has been a big argument in the communist movement, still is. Is there something inherent, sort of, in the nature of oppressed people, that they will come to the basic desire for revolution on their own? Because, given their oppressed condition, they just kind of know that they need to make a revolution. Well, then, no. That goes back, Lenin made that point, over 100 years ago. Yes, people who are oppressed will gravitate, will be inclined toward and move toward fighting against their oppression and even wanting to eliminate it. But then there's all the larger influences of the overall society that pull them back another way. There's the daily struggle to survive for, billions of people on the planet, and masses of people in this country included. There's all the ideas that are pumped out continually from the ruling institutions and the massive machinery of molding public opinion that they have through the educational system, through the culture, through the media, just in a multidimensional way, they shape people. So yes, people may be inclined in the direction of wanting to get rid of this, but then they get pulled back on their own by all this other stuff. So their resistance is always going to end up ultimately in a dead end. And then when it ends up in a dead end, people get demoralized. They say, and people even say it to us, well, look, we fought all this, we fought so hard, so many people came out, and we couldn't even put an end to police brutality, or we couldn't even save the right to abortion, so how could we ever make a revolution? But see, that's drawing the wrong conclusion, because in order to stop police brutality, in order to ensure the rights of women, including the right to abortion, you have to get rid of the system that is going to prevent that, that's going to oppress and suppress that. So if people are left on their own, they're going to end up in a dead end, plus they're not really on their own, as we all know. There are all kinds of other forces out there promoting all kinds of different programs which remain within and lead people within the confines of the system and back into a demoralizing dead end. Defund the police is a perfect example. Or in the abortion battle, well, don't worry because we'll have the abortion pill. And not recognizing how they're going to go after that too. And plus, the masses of women don't even have access to that, even if things weren't going the way they are. But all these illusions are promoted by all these different forces. So yes, look, if people, Marx made this point, and it's a very important point. If the masses don't stand up and fight back against their oppression, they will be reduced to broken wretches who are not capable of anything higher. You know, and just put it simply, if people are beaten down, how are they going to rise up for a revolution? So, you know, both because it's important that people not be forced to sell. I mean, right now I'm reading on our website, revcom.us, about a prisoner strike in Alabama, horrific conditions that are just, you know, unbelievable, you know, what people are being put through. It's just like a killing place, you know, and, you know, is it much better that people are rising up there, you know, even though that's not going to go all the way to revolution by itself? Of course, because people shouldn't be subjected to this. And also, if they're broken, you know, if they just are constantly broken down, how are they ever going to be able to rise up for anything bigger? So for both reasons, resistance is very important. Rebellion against oppression is very important. But then, you know, and people have commented on this, people, when they do rise up, they raise their heads and they think about things they don't normally think about. And they're open to thinking about things they don't normally think about or don't even want to think about. So that provides more opportunity and opening to actually get with them and lead them to the solution to all this, namely revolution. But left to itself, we've seen this over and over again. It doesn't go to revolution for all the reasons I was just discussing. So people have to be transformed, and the main thing, that means transformed in their thinking. It doesn't mean they have to wear different clothes. I mean, maybe in some cases that might be appropriate. I don't know. But it means transform in their thinking. In other words, in their understanding of why they're in the situation they're in. Could anything be done about it? What's the cause of it? If you understand the cause, is there a solution to that? What is that solution? And along with that, what is the morality that people have if they want to get out of all this? Is it go for yourself and fuck everybody else, or even a nicer version of that? Well, I'm doing me and you do you and we'll all get along, which doesn't lead where it needs to go. Or do they need to understand, again, what all this is rooted in? And do they need to be, you know, be transformed to be fighters against all oppression, to be emancipators of humanity, to be revolutionaries aiming to emancipate people all over the world ultimately, and to see themselves as in the same fight with people all over the world who are fighting against this oppression in all different forms. See, so that this is why, you know, even in order to continue fighting in the short run, people's sights need to be raised, and their understanding of the problem and solution on a scientific basis needs to be developed and strengthened, even in order to keep fighting short of revolution, and certainly in order to actually, once again, uproot the cause of all this. Their thinking needs to be transformed into see, people are trained to be unscientific. They're trained to be subjective. That is, you know, you respond by subjective, I mean, you're the subject. And whatever happens to you, you respond personally to that. That's what we mean by subjective. You know, you're the subject acting in the world, and whatever affects you personally, that's how you respond to it. Rather than seeing the larger picture, even the larger picture of why this is happening to you, let alone what's happening to a whole bunch of other people beyond you who are in the basic same situation that you're in. So this is what we mean that it's pivotal to transform the thinking of people. Not, you know, often it's not each one teach one, you know, that's, you know, gradual, slow education. It's transforming the thinking of masses of people. By going to masses of people and putting forward, like I said, in everyday language but scientifically based, why this is happening, what it's rooted in, how it relates to other things going on and other ways people are oppressed, and how we can actually get rid of all this, and therefore what your whole outlook needs to be about all this, and what your approach needs to be, and yes, what your morality needs to be in terms of what you're aiming for and what you're basing yourself on. Yes, people, you know, go through hardship, but you're not alone in going through hardship. Billions of people are going through hardship every day, and I've made this point before. You could find a person who's suffering the worst you could imagine somewhere in Louisiana or Mississippi or New York City, and there is somebody else in the world going through even worse. So, How do we understand that? How do we relate to that? Is it like, well, that's their problem, and this is my problem? Which means that neither one of you will get out of it. Or if a few of you get out of it, the masses of people won't get out of it. Or do you say, let's look for what we have in common, but more deeply than that, let's look at what it all comes from. Let's take a look. I've said a lot about science, but science is not a mystery. It's just actually engaging, reality. It's just interacting with the larger reality and then looking for what the evidence, see, that's the point that Ardea Skybreak has made, in an interview, Science and Revolution, which you can find at revcom.us. Science is an evidence-based process. It means you interact with reality, you discover the evidence about reality, and then you look at it broadly, and you analyze it, broadly, and then you bring it together, you synthesize it, you bring it together to identify what's essential about it. What are the patterns in it? What are the underlying causes of it? So this is what it means to transform the thinking of people. Everybody can take up a scientific approach. You don't have to be, look, if you're not a professional scientist, you're not going to be able to engage in a particular sphere of science the same way somebody who's a professional is. That's not what we're calling for. We're not saying everybody has to have a PhD in revolution. We're saying you can get the basic scientific method and keep on learning it as you apply it and drawing the lessons and doing that as part of a collective process where people are working and struggling with each other and helping each other understand the deeper causes of things. Everybody can do that. I don't care what your level of education is. It does, you can have the Ivy League degree or you can have dropped out of school in the 5th grade. Everybody can apply science if they put themselves to it and if they're led to do it, and it's part of a collective process. And that's what we need. And that's what is meant by transform the thinking of people. Transform their thinking from the spontaneous ways that they're misled to misunderstand what's going on, to have a scientific approach. And with that scientific approach, you get the understanding that grounds, that provides the foundation for a different morality, where you're not just out for yourself, because you understand that being out for yourself is not going to lead to the kind of world that we need. It's not going to lead to getting rid of all the oppression that you're being subjected to, but now you're learning about a whole bunch of other people are being subjected to. But it does correspond to maybe the dreams you've had, or the hopes you've had for some kind of world where all this doesn't go on. That's what it means to transform the thinking of the people, while we're also mobilizing and uniting with people to fight the power, to fight the outrages of the system, all in order to do those 3 prepares. Prepare the ground, the political situation, prepare the masses of people, not just a few, thousands and millions ultimately, and prepare the leadership that the masses of people need, the scientifically based leadership, yes, based on the new communism, as a scientific method and approach to lead those broader masses of people to actually work their way through all the contradictions you're going to encounter in order to actually break apart the system and bring it down.
So I want to invite everyone watching to tune into and contribute to a major national fundraising live stream on Sunday, June 23rd, 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We are raising funds for Revolution Summer 2024 to do everything you heard Noche and Andy talk about on today's show. We're aiming to raise $50,000 by July 4th, and a lot of that by June 23rd. Raising funds is a really critical part of getting organized for revolution, building up the forces for this revolution all across the country. So call your friends, your family, your cousins, your high school friends, everyone you know who is agonized about the state of the world and wants to know whether we can do something to really change it for the better and where their funds can go. Be part of fundraising projects, send in your ideas. You can write to us at the Revcoms on Instagram or email us at getorganizedforrevolutiontour@gmail.com. So that's Sunday, June 23rd on this channel, 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then.
To close out today's 200th episode of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, we're going to play an excerpt of a music video from the Iranian rapper Toomaj Salehi. Toomaj has been sentenced to death by the reactionary Islamic Republic of Iran for the political stance he takes in his music and the political stance he's taken in his social media in support of the people's struggle against the regime. Now, he's already been sentenced to death, and we don't know when the sentence will be carried out. But know this, in a 2-week period, from April 20th to May 4th, the Iranian regime executed an average of 1 person every 5 hours, and in just the last few months, they've executed up to almost 300 people. So you can look up more about who Toomaj Salehi is and what you can do to be part of raising the demand to free Toomaj at revcom.us and at freeiranspoliticalprisonersnow.org.
I think this is a very fitting way to close out our 200th episode with the fire and defiance of Toomaj's voice. I want to thank the crew of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. Put your comment in the space below. Follow, subscribe, invite your friends, and become a Patreon of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show at patreon.com/therevcoms.
All right, Annie Day. So the 200th episode. Good to be with you.
Yeah, you too.
All right. So as we said, we're going to close out with a video from Toomaj. Now, you just heard Bob Avakian talk about the importance of struggling hard with people to get out of the ways of thinking of this system and to get into how the world actually is and to get with the struggle of the people in this country for revolution. So we're going to close out the show with a song by Toomaj titled Rat Hole. Now, if you don't speak Farsi, you want to read the subtitles here, the translation, because you can see in this beautiful song, Toomaj is struggling hard with the people there to not... Well, I'll let him speak for himself. So I just want to say good night, and we'll see you next week.
اگه دیدی درد مردم ولی چشاتو بستی ظلم به مظلوم رو دیدی و از کنارش رفتی اگه از ترس یا واسه منفعتت خوده کردی تو هم دست ظالم هستی تو هم مجرم هستی اگه خودتو به خواب زدی وقتی که خونا رو میریختن گرفتار کسبتی وقتی جون جوونا رو میگیرن اگه وسط بازی وسط بودی و گفتی سیاست چی هست بدون رأی سفید نداریم بی‌طرف نداره این جنگ اگه دست رو چشمات گذاشتی دستات خونیان خائنی اگه تریبون داری و حرفات بو میدن دوری از وطن و دوربینای ما کمسو نیستن یادت باشه کثافتای پشت ابر لو میرن اگه سرپوش گذاشتی رو قتل تو هم قاتلی واسه پوشوندن جنایت باید رو خون راه بری بدون مال کشیدن تو این سیستم کامل نیست ایران اینقدر زندان داره که همتون جا بشین ژورنالیست بازاری مخبر دوزاری هنرمند درباری سوراخ موش بخر مأمور معذور از بالا دستور جلاد مجبور سوراخ موش بخر